And my name is Meg Howell-Haymaker, and I am the coach at Mountain View High School, and I'm also the Arizona NSDA District Chair. And this is
And I am Richie Glover, and I coach at McClintock High School with Tim Cornwell, and I'm also on the NSDA District Committee.
so we're going to talk to you guys about this whole virtual world of competing and what that means technology wise. Whether you're competing in a synchronous round, meaning a live competition, as if perhaps we were in a round right now and Richie and Janine and I were the judges and the seven of you were the competitors, this could look very much like a synchronous round. All of the judges would be there and all of the students would be there, and one of you would stand up and compete one right after the other, and it would be a live round. An asynchronous round, depending on the tournament, some tournaments require the students to actually show up during the round and then everybody watches the videos at the same time. Other tournaments, just you submit the videos asynchronously, or you submit the video and then the rounds are scheduled and they're given to the judges, and then judges can judge them on their own time and you don't have to be present in those situations. So you're going to come across all three of those competition experiences throughout this, at least through ASU. So we thought it would be a really good idea to talk about some of the do's and don'ts of being in this virtual world. So if you look at Richie, look how clear and bright his face is. You can see his nice rosy cheeks, and the picture is very clear. Okay, let's look at Janine. Janine is in a dark room, and we can barely see the features of her face.
She's being lit entirely by her computer monitor.
Yes, she is totally being just lit by the computer screen. So those are things that are really important to consider. And if you've ever been a photographer and you've taken pictures outside, the one thing that we don't do is what? We don't take a picture facing the sun because it makes the faces of the people you're taking a picture of go dark when the film is developed. So just by adjusting, one, the angle of your camera, and two, the position of the lighting. Now there is a light above me, and if I move this down and turn, see, then you get this. And what happens to my face? The features of it gets darker, the features go away. And so by putting it up, I'm standing up. I have my computer on top of a stool, on top of a book, and the lens is directly even with my eyes. And so then we don't get the looking down or the no image picture kind of that some of us are getting. Like Monica, she's looking down into her computer. And so we're going to talk about all these things, but I just wanted to use your own environments so that you can begin to think about what you need to do in order to be the best competitive self that you can be. Richie, you want to take it over for a minute?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Most of us are going to be using webcams for this, right? Like, I look really clean and really clear, right? Like, the picture is really nice in my webcam. I've got good lighting. That's because I'm using $1,500 worth of equipment to light myself and to take pictures right now. I'm using a really expensive digital camera.
I'm not.
Yeah.
But that's because I've got that light behind my computer shining directly on my face. So then you get this.
Exactly. Here's the deal. Your webcam, regardless of whether it's in your computer or in your phone, your webcam automatically adjusts the exposure of the picture. So what it does is it takes the entire picture and makes it black and white, and then tries to average out everything so that it's kind of a middle gray, 18% gray, right? That's how it makes an exposure adjustment in compensation, which means that if there's something really bright in the background, it wants to make everything else really dark, right? Which means if you've got something really bright right behind you, your face is going to go completely into shadow. For example, if you're sitting with your back to a window in the middle of the day, it's going to blow out behind you and you're going to be a silhouette. And I'm not going to be able to see your face and I'm not going to be able to like connect with you. Just moving your light makes a huge difference. So here's the best way to do this, especially if you're going to record a video for an asynchronous competition. If you're going to uh, actually, if you can set it up this way when you have synchronous competitions during the daytime, what you want to do is you want to find a very large window. Like find the biggest window in your house, put your camera or your laptop or your phone camera or something next to the window and face the big window, because that big, soft, even light is going to light you really nicely. It's going to make you look good. It's going to be kind of like, so let me tell you how I'm lighting myself right now, because I don't have a big window. I'm in the dark corner of my dark little apartment. Right now, the lighting on me is a compact fluorescent light in a light stand with a big shoot through photography umbrella right here. Like I'm literally touching it right now. It's right behind my camera. But you'll notice it's giving me nice, soft, even light. Now that's like photography gear, right? I'm a photographer. That's photography gear. But that same setup is only $30, right? I'll put a link in the chat room so that you can buy literally the exact thing that I'm using right now to light myself for $30. But even better would be if I had a giant window and it were daytime outside and I could stand facing that window, because that's going to be the same big, soft, even light. It's not going to give me a lot of harsh, weird shadows. It's not going to be really hard, direct, dramatic light. Now, Meg can show you some harsh, direct, dramatic light by
I'm going
taking
to
that
do it
lamp
right
that
now.
she's using and
So,
moving it around her head.
so lamp off. So you see the difference? Notice how it was dark immediately, but just like Richie said, the camera in my computer made adjustments for the light, right? So this might be a better, like it's softer, it's not as yellow, and you might like this fine. But I just want to show you what the difference is if I have too much light shining on my face.
Ah,
Now it's going to
wow.
make an adjustment. It's going to slowly adjust down, and then it kind of over adjusts, right? Because we're dealing with just a poor quality camera and a laptop. That's on high, that is on medium, and it's going to make an adjustment. And that is on low. And notice how then the color comes back in and it's softer. And then I could turn it off and then it makes that adjustment. But with this, what do you see behind me on that wall? The light from up above is making that wall look brighter than it probably needs to be. But this light changes that wall light. So I don't have that reflection of that wall coming back at the camera. So this is probably a better coloring, a better lighting situation. So I have the lamp on low facing my face from behind the camera lens.
So the other thing that you want to think about is hard and soft light. So light is nice and soft, and that refers to the shadow pattern that you get with light, right? So if you look, I'm trying to get a shadow for you to look at here. If you look at the shadow of my hand coming in here on my forehead, you'll notice how it's really sort of diffuse. Like you can see it, like it's not a real hard transition. If this light were smaller, if it were say a flashlight, you'd see a really crisp edge to that shadow, right? That's dealt with through the size of your light source relative to the size of you. So the sun at midday is a really hard light source because
There.
it's huge, but it's really really far away. So compared to us, it only takes up just a little bit of the sky. So it really makes hard shadows. Um, the bigger your light source can be, the softer your light's going to be, and the position of it also matters. Meg, do what you were just doing again. Like move that thing below your foot. The position also matters. Look how scary Meg looks right there. She's got full Halloween lighting, from up under her.
I'm
That is
going to
not good
kill
lighting.
you.
Exactly.
And this is not good either because it's coming from the side.
Yeah, you
So
want to.
we just get one side of my face lit and not the other.
There may be reasons to do that, but in general, you want lighting to come from above because that's where we're used to seeing lighting. So get it elevated a little bit, come from above, or at least right in front of you, right? Because that's going to be the most soft, even, flattering light. And that's really the best way to compete. So if you've got lights behind you, if like your camera's angled so that we can see your ceiling and your ceiling fan lights or the can lights in your ceiling or whatever lights are in your room are on, like you're going to want to adjust your camera angle so that you're going to want to adjust your camera angle so we can't see those things.
And
It's
the
okay for the light to be coming down on you, but we don't want to see the lights because it's going to like screw with your exposure and make you look worse.
so do whatever you have to do to lift your laptop up to be level with your head. So I'm short. I'm only 4'5", but in the classroom yesterday we were actually playing with laptops and creating heights. So the boys got a stool that's in my classroom and they put it on top of a desk, and they got one of those debate stands that the debaters put their laptops on, and then they put the laptop on top of the stool on top of the stand, and then it was tall enough for James to have the camera at eye level. And that's the angle that is most flattering. When you're looking down into the camera, we're seeing this, and that's not pretty. When you're looking, when you're below the camera and you're looking up, the lighting is actually really good right there, but it's not, the angle of what you're seeing is not good. But if I was competing in a round, I could, and we have to play with the angle, and you have to do this exactly what we're doing. So I'm now backed away because you want to see like above the knees up, no, nothing below the knees. You don't need to see the whole body because then you lose the face features. So what I need to do is I need to bring this angle down and go back and test. I can bring it down more. There. Do you see that? Now you can see a good speaking. My head is at the top of the screen, maybe a smidge low there. And then if I want to, I can come a little bit forward. I can move to the side. I want to make sure I stay within the frame. And I can move to the side over here and I can stay in the frame. And Richie's going to talk about those angles.
Yep,
But you always want to practice and figure this out before you videotape and before you compete.
absolutely. So the first part of that is that you want to get your camera up, right? Um, Typically, my camera is actually set a little low because my desk is really small and I can't get a tripod behind there. But I've moved it and I've set up a different tripod so that my camera is actually at eye level right now, which is great for me and great for you. It looks more like I'm looking at you. I'm looking at the like I'm still not looking directly at the camera, but I'm not like looking down on you. You're not looking up my nostrils, right? Like those are problems for this. You're also not really looking at my ceiling. Um, Here's the thing with cameras, you may have more than one camera that you can use, right? I see some people are on webcams on their computers, some people are probably on phones. That's cool. You may find that the camera in your computer is better or less good than the one in your phone. Oftentimes, especially the newer generation, newer models of phone cameras are super nice. Like the new iPhone, the, I guess there's a new iPhone as of today, but like the
12.
iPhone 11 cameras are beautiful. They're really, really lovely cameras. The camera in your computer, not so much. But one thing that they generally have in common is that they're really wide angle cameras, We'll talk about that in just a second because it has to do with Meg and what Meg was just saying and the positioning of yourself in your frame. Um, but the first thing I want to say is check to see which camera is best. If your laptop camera is better, like in the same general settings, the same general lighting, check to see which camera gives you a nicer picture, right? Record on both and check to see which gives you a nicer picture. Then use that one. If it's a built-in webcam, the best way to, like in a laptop or something, the best way to elevate it is to physically elevate the computer. I recommend using something like one of those adjustable table totes that debaters use. Those are great. That's a really nice stable platform. If you don't have that, a big stack of books will do just fine, right? Like a table, a big stack of books, a stool, whatever. Just get that camera up to about your eye level. And remember where your camera is in your computer. For some, it's right, for most, it's right at the top of the bezel above your monitor. For some, like there were some web cameras made for a little while that were in the bottom of the bezel down by where the hinge is, which is
Stupid.
stupid. I can't believe they did that because then everybody was looking up your nose.
Yeah.
Um, but figure out which one is best for you and raise it up. If you've got a phone and your phone is really good, first off, when you do recordings and when you do, unless you're doing like Meg's TikTok event that's going to be at her tournament, when you do recordings, I'm so excited about that event. It's going to be so much fun. When you do recordings for competition and when you do competition in general, your phone should not ever be vertical. It should always be horizontal, right? It shouldn't ever, you should never be holding it like this. You should always be holding it like this. Does that make sense? Everybody clear on that? Should always be that way for this. The other thing is you need to raise it up too. I recommend you get something like this. This is a Manfrotto Pixie mini tripod. It's got a nice little ball head on it, and it comes with an adapter for a phone that'll grip a phone horizontally, right? I don't have that because I don't use a phone, but this is good for that. This is a little tripod that also incidentally folds up into a really nicely grippable stick. So if you want to vlog with it, you can hold it out and vlog with it, right? This is a great little tripod. I use this literally all the time. It's cheap. It's really stable and sturdy. Um, it's super good and it's not expensive. I think the kit with this little tripod and the grip head for your phone is something like 30 bucks total, right? And then you've got a nice stable platform with which to set your phone on something tall so that you can get it up at eye level, right? Which is going to help you get better recordings. The other thing is, like I said earlier, all of these camera angles are wide angle lenses. That means that, like, from the lens, the angle that they cover in the room is going to be wide, but it's always going to be this sort of trapezoid, right? It's always going to be coming out at an angle. So the angle is fairly wide, and you need to figure out what the angle of your lens is, right? Because it's going to come out. Imagine that your lens, the lens of your webcam, is at the center of this, or is it the vertex, the point of this triangle. You're going to draw basically a line from the edges of that lens back along the visible path. And you can't see my hands because I'm tracing literally the edge. If I bring them in just slightly, you'll see where I'm at, right? My hands are, this is really hard to do in, there we go.
There.
So my hands are wide. I have to bring them very, very close together as I trace the edge of this lens.
So if
They're
you're in
really
the
close together.
room, if you're in the room like this, I'm now about, I don't know, 5 feet away from my camera in my computer. I can walk 1, 2 steps to my right, going back to center. I can go 1, 2 steps to my left. Okay. But that's back here. But if I go all the way up to where, let me bring my lens down a little bit. If I go all the way up to where maximum, as forward as I can get without losing the top of my head, I literally can go about a half a step this way and I can go about a half a step this way. So it's a half step up here and it's 2 full steps to the side back here. So
And if
you
she
have,
got even further back, if she was able to get further back, it'd be 4 or 5 steps to either side,
right.
right?
Janine, did
Like
you
the
have a
further
question?
back you
How far
go,
back are you? Are you like 3 feet or
No, I
6
was
feet?
about, I have a filing cabinet right here, so I can't go any further back. But right now, I'm probably 5 feet, 4 to 5 feet away from my computer.
oh, it's
But
not bad.
this is a good. If I lowered my it, here's the image that you want to be projecting in your during your competition rounds. You want to see from about the bottom of your suit jacket or just about your wrists up to the top of your head, and that should fill the frame. We don't need to see your feet. We don't need to see your knees. But if you wanted to, like depending on what you were doing, and we'll talk about creativity in a little while, but we'll address those kinds of things under creativity. But that's really what we need to see about the bottom of your suit jacket, wrist level up.
So here's the thing. This not only works from side to side, but it also works up and down. So the closer you come, the more likely your head is to get chopped off. And as you go back, the smaller it gets. So there are two things that you want to make sure that you do. One, you want to make sure that you don't go too far back and get totally lost in the frame.
And that we don't see that we can't see your facial features. Because
Yeah.
remember, your facial features and your expression in your eyes are very important to what you're saying, whether you're competing in oratory or informative or even humorous interp. That's like our faces are expressive.
So over my shoulder back here, you can see my bookshelf. That bookshelf's about 7 feet tall, right? And you can just see the line that runs along here. That's the edge of the wall of my apartment, and that's about 9 feet tall. Um, and like obviously my head is not as big as those things, right? So, but my head is filling the frame because of how close I am to my camera. So imagine all of this works like a cone of what you can see. You need to figure out where that cone is. You need to figure out how to come closer to the camera so your head doesn't get cut off. You need to figure out how to like line out the line of sight so you can figure out where the edges of your frame are. Like
There.
this angle right here. Here are the edges of my frame. When I come back by my head, it's much wider. My hands move outward, right? So you need to figure that out beforehand. I recommend putting tape on the floor and giving yourself some levels and figuring out like how far forward you can come so your head doesn't get cut off, how far backward you can go so you don't get lost in the frame, and where the edges of your space are. And so you'll make basically a trapezoid of tape on the floor, right? So that you can see as you perform where your limits are, where you can't go. I think that's really important.
So we've talked about lighting and we've talked about like physically filling the frame and camera angles. And I want Richie to talk to you about sound equipment right now. Um,
Yeah.
we did a couple little tests earlier before this evening, and uh, he's actually going to talk to you about the best sound options. But we want to make sure that your judges can hear you, that your voices are clear and crisp, and that they capitalize on everything that you're trying to impart communication wise in your speeches. Take it
Absolutely.
away, sound man.
So just a ton of like video problems can be forgiven, right? A video that's like exposed improperly or that's lit poorly or that skips and stutters and shudders a little bit. That stuff that's a little staticky, that stuff can be forgiven. We can forgive all of those things. It's really easy for us to not pay attention to that. What is unforgivable is bad audio. People will turn off videos for bad audio. This is a thing that happens on YouTube all the time. People will show up to a YouTube video, the audio will suck, and they'll turn it off. right? And the content may be great and the video may be beautiful, but the audio sucks so bad that people can't bear to listen to it. And the same thing will happen with your speeches. Not that people will turn them off, they'll sit and struggle through it, but it'll be a constant, perpetual distraction. I presume that you all can hear me reasonably well right now. Is that accurate? How do I sound? Pretty okay? Cool. I want to show you something. How do I sound now?
Like you're in a tunnel.
It's terrible, right? It sounds awful. You hear a bunch of background noise.
Sounds like you're in a cave.
Yeah. How about now? How do I sound?
I think you sound hollow.
A little tinny, a little thin.
Mm-hmm.
Bit muffled.
A bit muffled. It's not super loud, not super bright, but it's better, right, than the last one?
Yeah.
Cool. And finally, how about this one? How do I sound now?
You're clear, but I hear some background noise.
My air conditioner's on, so it's
okay.
There you go.
my air conditioner's on. I can't do much about it. I was dying of the heat. It's way too hot for October.
Yes, it is.
But I sound richer, right? Like just better quality sound. So the difference between those three, the first was the built-in microphone in my laptop. I have a $4,000 MacBook Pro. I spent a ton of money on this laptop. It is a fancy ass laptop. And the microphone is trash. It sounds awful. I sound like I'm in a cave. It picks up every little bump and bruise. It doesn't help much that I'm sitting next to literally a mirror. And I've got a hard floor under me and a hard wall behind me, all within about 3 feet. So it's just bouncing sound around. It's just echoing everywhere. And that's why I sound like I'm in a cave, right? When I use that microphone, because it picks up all of those things. The second option was the microphone in my Bluetooth headset. I'm wearing a Bluetooth headset that it's super cool. It sits in front of my ears and conducts through my bones, so it doesn't plug my ears like
this one.
AirPods would. It's got a microphone built in. It sounds decent. It's a little thin. It's not the world's greatest microphone. I sound a little tinny that way. It lives back here behind my ear, basically, is where the microphone for this lives. It's much better, right? So if you've got a Bluetooth headset of some sort that will keep a wire from dangling out of your ears or whatever, not giant cans on your head, something like that. If you've got some earbuds with like a Bluetooth mic, anything like that is going to be vastly improved. AirPods are a perfect example. That's going to be vastly improved audio, like right away. Finally, the last mic, the mic that I'm currently speaking with, is this. This is a little lavalier mic. It's actually, it runs directly into, it's wired. It's got a 25-foot long wire on it. It runs right into my camera and out, but I could also run it into my computer and out, and use it that way, or into a jack on a phone, whatever it might be. And it's actually a microphone that sounds good. Like it's a moderately professional quality microphone, and it sounds much better, right?
And the cord is long enough to where nobody would ever have to see it.
Yeah, nobody would ever really notice. You just like stuff it inside your suit jacket and run it like down the bottom, and it's really long, and you can keep it out of the way because it's literally 25 feet long.
And remember, they don't need to see past your hands anyway.
Yep. So it doesn't limit you that much. I actually used these with my duo team for nationals this year when we were recording for them. So great, professional mic, yada yada. That's awesome. We can't all afford professional mics. This one is $20. It's so cheap. I'll send you all a link. It's so cheap to buy a decent microphone that sounds good. You may have one in your headset, which is fantastic. Use it. But whatever you do not use the built-in microphone in your phone or your computer. Don't do it. It sounds terrible.
I will say that the newer iPhones, we recorded Tron's oratory for the Senior Open, for NSDA Senior Open on her new iPhone. It was a iPhone 11 or 10 or I think whatever it was. It was a new one and had three cameras on the back. But anyway, we tried a couple of different options, and that was by far the best sound of the options that we had. And it was really, I was surprised at how clear it is. So test all of your options. Don't just settle for the first or easiest one. Test all of the options that you have available to you. And as a team, you could purchase a couple of lavaliers and then share them as you guys are recording.
They're an inexpensive option to get good audio. And good audio is really important because if we can't hear the words you're saying, then nothing else matters, right? If it's a distraction, like we want to minimize distractions, right? That's why we wear suits to tournaments rather than like dressing in our favorite clothes. It's why we, uh, yeah, it's why we do a lot of the things we do. So given that we want to minimize distractions for the judge, we want people to focus on your content. You want to minimize distractions in your environment too. So that's why it's important to think about how you're lit and what your camera is aimed at and like the level of your camera and what your audio sounds like and all of these things we've been talking about, because that's going to make the best looking performance that minimizes distractions.
Do you guys have any questions?
What happens if we can't get a good microphone before next weekend?
Do
I
your
would,
best.
yeah, do your best. Like the microphone that are you using the one on your headset or are you using the one on your computer?
On my computer.
So I just want you to know what it sounds like. You're cutting in and out, so we don't get all of the words. When you said the word computer, we mostly heard pewter, and so it's really important to test all of your options. Try your phone. Try your mom or dad's phone. Try a different laptop. I would even go as far as to try a pair of earbuds that have a microphone built in. Now, I've tested my earbuds, my AirPods, and they're not as good as this Jabra microphone I have here. And actually, they're not as good as my just normal little headphones with microphone that comes with my phone. But the problem with these is that there's nowhere you can tuck these cords so that people can't see them.
They're also not long enough.
They're not long enough. These like are Bluetooth, so I can be away from my computer, but the sound is not as good. But trust me, this sound is better than my laptop. Like I can turn this Jabra off. So did my sound change?
Radically.
Yeah, so this is my laptop sound as opposed to this headset piece that I usually teach with. And so you want to just test all of your options. I'm going to go back to the Java, and you can see instantly, probably hear a difference in those. So just do a bunch of testing with as much equipment as you can. And also, once you get to the tournament and you get to your room, you ought to do a sound check. Have everybody turn on their microphones and say a couple of sentences so that you can like discern whether everything is working adequately.
Also, all of your teams get a virtual squad room. There's one available for you in your NSDA account already, and that exists perpetually so that you can all go in and actually test using the NSDA campus software that will be used at tournaments that have synchronous rounds, right? Additionally, at the tournament, there's a link for you to go into a squad room with your team in between rounds. It's just there, and you can go into it at any time. My kids have found that they really like to go in there after rounds and talk to each other and break down the round, and it makes things feel a little more together
Like a tournament.
rather than so separate and spread out. But those are a great place to go in and test your equipment and see how you sound to everybody else, because you sound like you to you, right? You sound normal to you. You can't hear what's coming through your microphone, just what's coming through everybody else's. So it helps to have somebody else to sort of test with and make sure that things are.
How many of you do interp? Okay, a couple of you anyway.
A couple of interpreters.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about being creative in interp. So when we think of recording a video, we think of doing our DI, HI. If I had a black book, I actually probably have one here. I do. That's typical coach. Uh, whether we're doing prose, poetry, or poi, we think of this sort of presentation realm where we're competing about this far away from the camera, and we do our whole piece right here, top to bottom. We begin, we finish, and we're done. You don't have to limit yourself to that. So I teach at a camp in the summer, ISD, and we got really creative after watching the final round of duo. If any of you saw the duo final round from NSDA Nationals, those kids were going off screen and coming back on and coming on different sides. And I had not conceived that. In my brain, I hadn't conceived it. And when I saw it, I was like, what was wrong with me? Why didn't I, like, I'm a theater director. I should think of these things. And it was brilliant. So if duo can do it, why not HI or DI? So we played with all kinds of angles, with all kinds of entrances and exits, especially with HI, because you're playing multiple characters. So I'm playing a character who's being chased, and I come in on this side, and I'm looking back, and I go out, but then I go down, and you can't hear me. And then I come in over here as a completely different character. I can leave the screen, I can come in, I can be far away. We even had one kid who ran across the screen this way, exited down here, and then came in, not on this side actually at all, but he came in from up above, and it was wild. I don't know how he did it, but he created this image where he was coming in from above. Be creative. Think outside the box. You might come really close and then
Meg,
just
freeze right there. This is another thing with wide angle cameras that you should think about, is that when you get close to a wide angle camera, it distorts your features a little bit. You'll notice Meg's nose got like really big, and her glasses got like extra big. They just look super different when she gets close to the lens. That's an effect that you can use to like convey emotion, right? Similarly to like the directionality of your lighting or the kind of lighting you're using, you can use it to convey emotion. You can use it to make a statement, right? If you want to, set a light so that you're underlit for the horror prose that you're doing or whatever, that's a thing you could consider doing.
so I could come all the way in and then look down here and then suddenly be like, ooh, and I disappear as if I got pulled under or something. Like there's lots of options for you to think about when you're filming your DIs, HIs, pros, pois, duos, especially. Like they give you lots of options. So we just wanted to put all of this information out there because I want to show you some screenshots. Richie, can I share on
Yeah.
here? So these are some pictures that I took at the Desert Ridge tournament. As you can see, this kid is very tall. He's in an extemp round. He's got on headsets, which is fine. I'm not opposed to that if that's the best way to get your sound. But he's really tall, and I can't see his face at all. All I can see, all that my camera is focusing on, or his camera is focusing on, is that bright light behind him. That young man also, when he spoke, he moved toward the camera and chopped off his head, like in that last shot. And he moved forward and he moved back, forward and back. That's the only movement that he made while he was speaking. So sometimes he was far away and we saw just his head, and sometimes he was up close and he chopped off his head. Here's another young man in an extemp round, and he's sitting down to give his speech. I'm not really in favor of sitting down to give your speeches. Debate is a completely different issue, but for extemp, impromptu, oratory, informative, all of your interp events, I would not sit down. But let's just look at his environment. He's in front of a white closet door, which is fine. There's not that much distraction in the background, which is pretty good. If he would have been standing, it would have been much better.
His camera is also too low, right? He needs to
Yeah.
lift his camera up so that he can lift his head up so that he's not talking like this, or so that we're not looking up his nose.
Well, and that was the big issue with this one, is because he's way too low. It's like sitting on a desk that is down around his waistline, and he's looking down directly into the camera. Let's look at this one, and I have 3 shots of this young man. This is actually the young man that was moving backward and forward. So again, his window is way over here, which is creating this lighted area over here. His face is completely in shadow. We can't see his facial features at all. He's the one that moved just forward and back. I'll show you the next image. There he's moving a little bit forward. Again, we still see no facial features because of the lighting.
If I can interrupt here for just
Sure.
a second. This is actually another interesting thing that those of you who have darker colored skin are going to want to think about, is that there is a long history of really fundamental racism in the industry of film. And by that I mean like the actual production of film, the stock that we used to shoot things on, that carried over into the development of camera sensors, which are not very good at picking up facial features on dark skin. You've got to really be careful about the way that you light people with dark skin in order to make sure that their faces can be seen, because the cameras are designed to be sensitive and to focus appropriately on people who look like me. And that's really like, that's a huge problem that we have to consider and compensate for. And you can do that by making sure that your lighting is good and in the right direction, and so that you're not like, this young man's got, like, the reason that he's so underexposed that you can't see his face very well is because the light coming in from the window off to his side is illuminating the wall and the like the
ear.
white wall and the ceiling there, and is creating a really bright spot. So everything else in the image gets darker to compensate for that really bright spot. Remember, it's searching for a middle gray tone, right? And so all the dark spots get or wind up being sort of overexposed to balance out the really bright highlight spots. And you don't want that to happen. So,
and notice also that he's looking down into the camera and he's moved so far, he's chopped off the top, far forward, that he's chopped off the top of his head. The next 2 are still of him, but I want to show you some of these from nationals. Look at the plain backgrounds, good lighting. Here's an info, plain background, good lighting. And I didn't intentionally just pick these kids. These were the only ones I could find on YouTube. Here's with his VAs in the background. You might want to think about VAs. He's got his on blackboards. So that might impact like whether you use a whiteboard, a blackboard, or a colored board, depending on like the video quality and the lighting.
Because your camera will automatically adjust your exposure, make sure that you like keep whatever boards you use consistent, because if he rapidly switched to a whiteboard right now, his exposure would change and the lighting would be screwy.
Yeah, you would want the boards to all be the same color.
Yep.
Let's go to the next one. So this is his national final round in the Senior Open in Congress. But again, the camera is facing this big bright window. He would have been so much better off if he had turned that camera around, and if he would have physically faced the window and put the camera sitting on a desk in front of that window. That would have been a better view for us to see him.
And if you want a nice plain background for yourself, like generally speaking, your bedrooms are fine as long as you don't have anything wild and crazy on the walls. It's not super distracting. But if you want a nice clean background, like the first couple of kids we looked at, just hang a sheet. Like take a couple of thumbtacks and
you can see that this is a sheet. You can see the wrinkles in it right here. This is some sort of tarp or sheet or even maybe butcher paper, but I think it's a sheet hanging behind him. These were walls, I think, hanging behind them.
I think those two are actually probably in their school theater, and that's the scrim.
Yeah, I probably agree with you.
That's my guess.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And then let's look at a couple of debate rounds. And just in the debate rounds, you can see the difference. Now, this is a judge up here, and this is a judge right here, and this is a judge down here. But you can see the difference in all of these. This young man up here in this corner, he's looking down into his camera. But the lighting is fairly bright and light. This young man, even though he has dark hair and looks to be like something black behind him, his face is nicely lit. We can see him very well, which is good. But this woman is underexposed because she has that bright light behind her and darker skin. She's a judge, it doesn't matter, but if she was a competitor, it would matter. And then the next round is a policy round, I think. Nope, this is a PF round. That other one was a policy round. So you can see the different colorations and images. This judge, we cannot see any features at all. This young lady has nice light facing her. It looks like maybe her camera is a little bit low. But that's generally the case with a lot of these kids, is that their cameras are low. Hers is about eyesight or eye level, which is nice. Do you guys have any last minute questions?
So like, is like a background, like a bedroom background fine, or should we
find a good wall? I was working with my students the other day virtually, and we were looking at walls in their homes. I'm not even opposed to closet doors that are closed, as long as the lighting is good and I'm not looking at the ceiling.
Yeah, generally, like the space where Meg is right now is perfectly reasonable, right? It's not super distracting. Even the stuff on the walls isn't really that distracting.
It's fine.
It's fine. As long as you don't have, some ridiculous poster hung up or something right behind you that's gonna like catch my attention the whole time.
Or a pile of dirty clothes or, whatever. Yeah. Other questions?
So my coach is actually making us do it in person at our high school. Do you want us to put our desks like try to ask our teachers that we're using for the classrooms, like put the desks somewhere else or what?
You could just move, like when we recorded for the NSDA Senior Open, we went to a classroom on campus, and I looked at all the classrooms in my building, the ones that had like the nicest background wall, and we found a nice kind of plain background wall, didn't have a lot of decorations, wasn't too distracting. We moved the desks away so that she would have enough performance space to be able to walk and be seen. We taped out the floor. I got a desk lamp that was in my room, and I took it down to that room, and we put this screen behind it so it like broadened the light on her face. So, but we played for a couple of days practicing to try to do those kinds of things. Just put yourself in the best available space you can. And if you're going to be in school with, Rich, you might want to talk about this, with ceiling fluorescent lighting, you might want to do some sort of lamp that's facing you also.
Okay.
Also, you may want to just let your coach know that we had at the Desert Ridge tournament last week, Brophy all got together at Brophy to do the tournament. Like all the judges and all the competitors actually gathered at Brophy to do the tournament, and their Wi-Fi collectively was abysmal. It caused so many problems. They were like, the competitors were
They missed rounds.
often like missing rounds or stuttering or whatever. Like the video was stuttering because everybody was trying to use the Wi-Fi at its like minimum because it was the weekend. So whatever was like whatever settings that their school Wi-Fi were cranked down, it just turned into a giant nightmare. And so it's probably recommended not to do that kind of review. Oh, one last tip, because you'll notice as I've been talking to you, it doesn't feel like I'm looking directly at you, right? Because I'm looking at my laptop and my camera is actually just slightly over here. Now it feels like I'm looking at you, right? It feels like I'm looking you in the eye.
Right.
Remember how important eye contact is to this. Especially if you're using a laptop. Here's what I like to do. Eye contact is so super important to this. It's important to remember that the eye contact comes from looking at the camera, not looking at Zoom. So
don't watch your judges, look at the camera.
I take a Post-it note and I draw eyes on it. You can't see it very well. I draw eyes on it. I draw the eyes. I wish I'd used a Sharpie. I draw the eyes on the part, like on the back side where the sticky stuff is. And then I can stick those eyes on the back side of my laptop monitor right behind my camera. So when I'm looking into these eyes, it looks like I'm looking into the camera, right? And that reminds me, get eye contact. So when I look at these, it's like I'm looking at the camera.
So I want to show you the difference. So the difference in just right now, I'm looking at Marae, okay? I'm looking straight down at her. Now, if I was competing and I was speaking to the Zoom pictures on my computer screen, it would look like this. But if I really want to make eye contact, I'm going to lift my eyes up and I'm going to talk to the camera, oblivious to the people that are down here on my screen. But that makes all the difference in my eyes when I look up at the camera as opposed to looking down at the people on the Zoom. Did you see the difference? So it's hard to do because we want to talk to the people that we're competing in front of, but that's why he draws the eyes and puts them up above the lens.
Draw eyes on a sticky note and stick them right behind the lens on your laptop camera, and that will remind you, look up. These are the eyes, right? Look into my eyes.
Guys, I want to thank you for attending. so that we had an audience to record this. It would have been horrible if no one had
Yeah, that
attended and it was just
really
Richie
a
and I talking to each other. And I want to especially thank Richie for all of his technical knowledge of equipment. He's a wonderful photographer and has great equipment, and he cares about this activity and he cares about all of your performances just like I do. So I want us to thank him. Thank you, Richie, very much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for attending.
And also thank you, Meg, for having this idea. And I think this is a great idea. And I appreciate all of the experience and knowledge you bring to it. It makes a difference. And hopefully these guys enjoyed it and got something out of it. So thanks, Meg. We appreciate you.